How you doing, Raymond? Um, Checking on the sound and the video. Everything working okay? Let me add a little more light. It's a real dark day today. There we go. A little more light. Hi, Sam. Michael, how are you? Abdul. Hi, Graham. I don't know if I like that on or not. How you doing, Brian? We just. Mm. Okay, video and sign working okay. Great. Hi, Steve. Aloysius, Paul, Hader. Hi, Hader. Okay. Let's go over some of these things. Some we've already talked about. And any questions or ideas or plans? Hi, Caesar. Paul, how you doing? Okay. Matthew met with Arnaud Rousselet, who's the director of Comble Mine. He's the new director. The original director got sideways with Voot and Lannon and left, and naturally that's when we sort of got caught in that lurch. But now they have a new guy, and they met. I think it was Wednesday or Thursday last week, and they're getting together and getting a solution for fixing the oxidized dials and working out something for something so we don't have the oxidation problem in the future. Hi, Martin. So again, that's pretty much where we are on that. Now, what I think I'd like to do to proceed, and I've talked to some of the guys who were involved, the transfer coordinators and our banker. And this is the plan, is to hold on to any current shipments in the U.S. In other words, if somebody got their watch and there's a problem with it, to hold on to it for now. And we'll get to it later. But to get the correct dials done, there are two people left in the U.S. who didn't get theirs simply because we ran out. And so in the next shipment, when we have, because I think we have enough cases for quite a few now, and then we'll get the correct dials again this coming week. In fact, tomorrow we ought to hear back from Comble Mine and find out what their plan is, and then sort of move ahead with that. Now, what I would like to do is take all of the new ones that we're getting, all of the new dials and movements, and other than the two that are left over in the U.S., is to start the European, the Asian, and Australian shipments. And then once all of those are done, and these are ones that I think we have, the quality control has increased because of necessity. I'll put it that way. Unfortunately, some of the ones that shipped had oxidation problems. And if they didn't have oxidation when they went through the QC and then developed them later, there's no way of knowing that. Now, mine doesn't have an oxidation problem. I've talked to some other people, and theirs don't either, but others do have an oxidation problem. These are those of us who have received it in the U.S. So anyway, so we'll wait until all of that, everything is done, and then those in the U.S. who need to return their watches for a new dial because of oxidation, then we'll get those done. And then a lot of people have been upset that we got to pay the extra thing on that. I don't blame them. I really don't. It's just the thing of it is how we're going to do that. We paid all of our bills to Combley Mine, and we want to get our watches, and we want to get them in good shape. And so I thought, well, what we'll do is we'll get everything done and then send an invoice to Combley Mine for the added expense. I don't know how we would enforce that. I don't know if it's financially makes sense to hire a lawyer. I don't think it does on one of these things, because even though there is an expense, there's an added expense to a lawyer. We may end up not doing as well. What I'd like to do is really is have them see if the guys at Agano or maybe Matu could help us out on that and say, look, do the right thing. Anyway, so that's where we are on that. Let me get any feedback you guys have. Color change? No, they're going to stay with the same color. I don't think that has anything to do with the oxidation, but if it does, then if they come back this next week, Caesar, and say there's nothing we can do because that eggplant color, I forgot the aubergine or whatever it is in French, we can't, that color happens to oxidize because of X, Y, and Z, then we can talk about another color. But I don't think we can get, every one of them have a color, their own color. We would have to go through and decide which one we want for the new batch. Like I said, we're sort of we don't have any leverage as far as saying, fix them or we're not going to pay you because we already paid them. And about the only thing we can do is make sure that we get everything done right, and then we can talk to them about because I don't want to get into a big fight and hold up everything, because we got like $1 million in this watch, and I think it's important to get it done. And then for those who, which should be all of us who don't think it's right, that we should have to go through all of these extra things because of the problems that they had. Thoughts on that? Hi, Donald. Yeah, here's the thing, Donald. it's everybody's effort, not just mine. Mine is, I think we have to recognize all of us get frustrated over this. Some people think they discovered evil. Well, they haven't. They haven't discovered incompetence. They haven't discovered what's not right. We're all aware of that. I mean, it's like, I understand just sort of wanting to blurt out, but we've got to be careful about, screaming and hollering, because we're still, the GPHG voting is ongoing. I don't think we're going to make it. I saw the other watches that are in our category, but we'll see. Maybe we will. Maybe we will make the nominations, and that would be great. But screaming and hollering about all of the problems doesn't help. And so let's just see where things are going. But the big thing is to get them done right. The funny thing is that my watch too had a problem, a broken stem, and that was fixed and had to go through this same rigmarole. But actually, it's a really nice watch. I mean, I really like it, but God knows, it's almost hard to imagine that at every single step there's been something, and this includes the movement, it includes the case, it includes just everything. And okay, so we got to hoist up our big boy pants and just deal with it. That's about the only thing I can think of doing. Henry, yes, absolutely. Yeah, if you sent yours in with a fouled up dial, they're not going to send it back to you unless they have one of the new ones, because they're going to have to take it apart. I don't know how they deoxidize it or what they'll do. I really don't. But they have to do to make it right. Okay, so they'll make it right. And then once after everything else is done, we're going to take it in that sequence. So because the first step will be to solve the oxidation problem, make the rest of the dials that were owed and fix the ones that we already have on hand. Get those on the watches. Have Sebastian. We have, by the way, too. We finally have a good group of movements on hand. In a way, oddly enough, by the delay of the movements that we have for shipping, in a way that means that fewer dials with oxidation problems are going to be shipped. So sort of holding that up beforehand. But Henry, yeah, definitely. Like I said, some of us have no oxidation, and the weather we've had lately, I think it would oxidize a diamond. It's just been muggy and hot and everything else that oxidation likes. And like I said, my watch has been fine on that. I talked to some other people, and theirs have been fine too. I'm sure there are others that have problems, and when they do, let's wait until we get everything done and then send it back. The other reason for hanging on to the US watches, mine may develop oxidation later. But so if I say, well, I'm going to send it back right now, and then I'd rather wait and see if it does have an oxidation problem, I have to send it back again. Yeah, Brian, I hope so. Brian, for those of you who are going to the what's it called, Watch Time show in New York in October, it's coming up pretty soon, about 2 months from now. In fact, almost exactly 2 months from now. We can talk to Kari Voutilainen, he's the owner. He's the top guy. He may be the CEO, and Arnaud Rousselet is the director. I don't know how they use the names. I don't even know if Voutilainen, goes and hangs out and checks things out or not. But if between now and October, I think we can do enough to nudge everything in the right direction. Okay. Anything else on that? Maybe they'll tell us the only dial that we can guarantee with no oxidation is a pink one. I don't know. I'd trade mine in for one. Abdul, yeah, we have to have a solution-oriented mindset. Yeah, that is. we've got too much invested. Every one of us does, and I just don't like to see that at all. And I'm cautiously optimistic with Brian on that for them to do the right thing. If not, I don't know. Any ideas? Mid-September, I'll be in northern Italy. I can meet people in Switzerland if needed. Okay. You mean, see, I thought you were banned from northern Italy. I guess you got clearance now to go back. Okay, just kidding. All right, moving right along. Yeah, I wanted to mention that the voting is still going on, the initial voting. What they're having the Academy do, we all voted for 6 watches in each category. And so, God, I guess there are 900 of us. So, and a number one vote is so many points and on down through 6. So if you voted a watch for number 1, it'll get 6 votes. If you voted it for number 6, it'll get 1. And so they'll take all of these combination of votes, and then they're going to have a second vote. And I'm not sure how that works. I think the second vote part is a new thing. They have the whole Academy involved in the first vote. The second vote, I'm not sure what they're going to do. They may, I just don't know. And we'll find out, though. And I think if there'll be an announcement, the first vote will determine the nominees. And like I said, given what we're up against, I'd be very surprised if we made it, but I'd be very happy if we did. Maybe somebody in our group got somebody mad at them, and that's sad. I don't know. But anyway, just let's be a little more judicious about the kind of public statements we're making, especially if you make any of them outside of our contained private Facebook pages. Okay, now let's go on. And anything else on that you have a point or question on? Anything else on 2? Okay, now I'm not sure that I totally understand all of the reasoning behind this, but in the past we've sort of, maybe like lemmings, we've learned to follow Matthew's advice. We don't always do it. There's advice versus just what Matthew would like to do as a designer. And like I said, we usually figure out, well, we better go along with Matthew. It's probably the smart thing to do. When we had voted on the concept number 2 and concept number 4 was the one we selected primarily on the basis that we didn't want to go through this whole thing again, spending a fortune just on the case. We spent, oh God, our cases must have ended up close to 2,000 Swiss francs each. It was an awful experience. So what Matthew did, he and I had these last week, they listed a number of case makers and what is needed, what they need, is sort of got a two-way thing here. Matthew said, look, if we went with concept number 2, which was actually one I think we liked aesthetically better, but we didn't want, because we didn't want to go through another super expensive case. So what we did was, we went with number 4. Well, now I got this an email from Matthew said, look, if we want to keep it closer to now this was also after 2, I said we sort of prefer, after last week's meeting, we'd prefer 2 crowns rather than a crown and a pusher. Okay. I'll get back to that in a second. And so I put up on the announcement, I put up a picture of concept number 2. Now, you can take a look at the motherboard, not the motherboard, the mood board that we had, and it should be, you should have had it for a long time by now, but it should be on the AirZulu site, okay? And this one is presented with 2 crowns. Now, let me say this about that, okay? Having a crown at 4 o'clock is it was another thing we'd wanted, sort of the 2 and 4 combination, is that if that works with the way the movement has been designed. Now, if the movement requires a pusher, which is very different from, unless you have a pusher crown, perhaps we could have that, but it's not the same thing, okay? So the final one will depend on the characteristics of the movement as far as moving the Zulu arm. Caesar, I don't think that would be a whole nother thing to do. This would be a mono pusher. I don't think we're going to have that. Michael, wouldn't a pusher versus crown for the Zulu be dependent on the Agenor movement? Exactly. It's exactly right. And so the technical part of the movement will depend on the case, the choice of the case and the movement and so forth. So here's what Matthew has to do. He has to create a case, design, give it to it'll be a 3D design based on what Agenor created for us on the 6850 movement. And then take that and then base their estimate on that particular movement. And so anyway, so the case, the cost of the case is dependent in part on the design of the design of the movement, okay, relative to the case relative to the movement. I don't know if that makes sense or not, but essentially that's what we're dealing with. Yeah, Caesar, I'll tell you, I always think it's a really good idea to vote on everything. But I don't know really if voting will help. If it did, it could say, well, if the guys at the who are doing the making the movements, forgot the name of the company is AB something or other. It's somewhat similar to ABP Concept Paris, which makes bands, but this is AB something or other that makes movements. Anyway, so what will happen is that we'll get an estimate based on the design, and I don't know if we're at a point where we can vote again in this regard without saying, okay, well, there's a charge for coming up with an estimate. Basically, what they have to do is do the same thing that Agenor did with the movement, is to go through all of the details on the case relative to the design based on what needs to be done with the movement. So it's not, it's not a matter of, when we get to that fork in the road, if there is one, we can decide what to do then. But I don't think right now we can say, well, let's vote on it. I mean, it's sort of like, well, it depends on the weather, pretty much. Should we go to the beach or the mountains? Well, there's avalanches in the mountains and the beaches are pretty nice. And so, or vice versa, there's tsunamis at the beach and the mountains are nice. We're depending on it like that. Yeah, that's right, Aloysius. That's exactly right. That's why we went with that was why we went with number 2. I'm sorry, that's why we went with number 4. You're right. And we did that on the basis of exactly what I just said, of that Matthew said that he felt that the price would be better if we had that 3-part case. And so that's why we did that. We're trying to keep it at 950 Swiss francs so we don't go broke. Yeah, I think, Michael, what what we're dealing with is there's really good communication between Matthew and Aguilar, since they're working out of the same building, and you might as well add Sebastian to that too. So, I think we're sort of at a point now where we have to wait and see what the quote is. Now, if they come back with a quote that is like within our sort of wheelhouse, you might say, then we can decide whether we want it at that time. Like I said, the initial vote was based on wanting something that was more economical. And after going back and forth with the movement maker, somehow Matthews came to the conclusion that if we wanted to keep it within our budget, this would be the way to go with the number 4. What I'm doing, I'm keep pointing to number 2 because I have a picture of it up over to my left. So sorry about that, but that's what I'm doing. And it's like I said, this was the one that we all agreed we liked the looks of better, but we also agreed that number 2, if it would be more economical, let's go with that. Let's save 1,000 Swiss francs per unit instead of, so we don't have to run into what we have done with number 2. And by the way, too, Matthew did say, look, you ran into a lot of problems. This is with number 2. So we think with this design, you'll be better off in terms of running into problems. So let's hope we can do that. Yeah, as far as I'm concerned, a pen pusher or a regular pusher or a crown pusher, I don't know what that would look like. Any of those that will function well without having to mess up the movement because we insisted on something that doesn't work as well. Yeah, we've got to understand that. So we'll see. Anything else on that? Okay. Once the 3D design for the case is completed, Matthew will be able to get an accurate case offer. Okay, this would be the unit for the 102 cases. But he's got to get the design. Apparently, for number 4, he said he couldn't do it within our budget, and which has really surprised me. But he said he could with number 4. And like I said, for the most part, we go along with him. I think he wanted to have the dial with the one hand underneath and the other 3 on top. I didn't like it. A lot of people didn't like it. And even though it would sort of make it for a little different design, it would save a lot of problems, I think, down the road. Is Matthew designed for the Sapphire still pending? I'm not sure what you mean by that. Oh, you mean, is this for the 41 millimeter or 40 or 39? Is that it, Michael? Yeah, nothing yet. Now we've got, see, I keep going back to Matthew and just, like, are we there yet, sort of a thing. And that's what I'll do for the rest of this week, is trying to get that information. And then once we have more information, then we can make better decisions ourselves. But we've got, we're really paying a lot for Matthew to do what he does. And I think in the past, I think we've been wise to take his advice when it comes to putting things together that will work the best. I did remind him that, okay. So if we go with concept number 2, as far as the case is concerned, and this will help us keep the budget down, and we want all 4 hands on top of the dial. We don't want any underneath the dial to have the little peekaboo thing, and God knows what the dial problems might arise from that. Just from Sebastian doing the construction. Okay. Oh, the drawing on the napkin. I don't know. I haven't heard back from that one. That one, like I said, that I thought was sort of interesting. I don't know whether you'll do it or not. We'll see. I think what we need to do was to, again, take a look at that the one on the mood board that we had. And like I said, we did vote for the other one for number 4 instead of number 2. But that was because we were going to go with, I think, 3 levels instead of 4, or in other words, it would be instead of having 4 parts to it, it'd be done with 3. And so this one would, I guess, be done with 4. You have the back, the center, and then the bezel, and then something else. Anything else on that? Okay. That's all that I've got now. I can, if if I get anything from Matthew during the week, I'll put it up on the site. Uh, for either one, for either dealing with oxidation or with Etude number 3. Here's the thing: is that I just want to tell you, at least for me anyway, Etude number 2 has been a real monkey on my back. I've been trying to get my bank account back so I have it again, but I can't do anything until we're finished with that. But I'm not going to rush it because I want my bank account back, but I do want to get it done. Number 2, and then we can focus on the Air Zulu. And we really have only been able to do it almost like on the side because of this other blasted thing. God knows if there'll be another problem. So I'm not saying that, once oxidation is solved, that'll solve everything. Just, trying to minimize problems with number 3 and trying to just get number 2 finished with. And like I said, this is one of the problems, I think, with it. We've had so many problems developing number 2, which was supposed to be the easy one, that I can't, it's hard to enjoy it as a really good watch. And this is, I keep having to remind myself, this thing really turned out very well. And especially for, I don't think I'll ever want to look at Guy Lochet again. But anyway. Okay, Abdul, you got anything on Etude number 4? There was sort of Agenor had hoped that you'd be starting it this coming month. Any thoughts on that? I know that, you'd sort of like, oh, can't we wait until we at least get one of these finished? I don't know. Abdul, got anything? Yeah, I know we got a lot of people on the list. I keep also too, I keep getting people who say, well, they want one. They want anyone. They want a 1, 2, or 3. And the or 4. The 4s I send off. The 3 I put on a waiting list. The 2s I put on another list, and the 1s, same thing. One of the things that we might set up that I think would be really useful, and this is for Hader, on our website, if somebody wants to sell their watch, we could have something for Etude 1, 2, 3, and 4, and then have for someone to just go to Hader and say, hey, I'd like to sell my watch, and this is what I want to sell it for, and then Hader could put it up. Steve and Abdul, you guys do what you want on that. I mean, that's up to you. Where you're really sort of doing it, the only thing I think that would be helpful to you for starting in September isn't really doing a lot of work on it, but rather a commitment so that Agenor could put us in the schedule. That's all I'm saying. So that there'd be a hope that it would be done by, in a way that would work for us. The other point is that we did have a commitment based on the number of parts that they ordered. If they ordered enough for 2 E3s, then half of it would go to, or part of it would go to E4, and they could save money that way too on both watches. So like I said, it's your show, so I'm just looking at it from trying to you have this very complex thing. Paul and I had a really good talk about this, about the sort of the whole integration of all of these different parts. I mean, the watchmaking industry is, you take the most complicated Patek Philippe, even without silicon, and you have this very complex elements going on in the Swiss watchmaking industry. Doesn't only affect us. One of the things Aloysius posted was a picture of another watch that had the same problem. I think it was also by Comblamine. They had the oxidation problem. So we're not alone with that. And apparently we're not alone with a lot of other things as well. But, what are we? A couple, we're hanging in there so far. But like I said, you guys can figure out a way to do it that would work the best for everyone. Something like that, Abdul. Yeah, I think what I would suggest, and again, this is nothing more than a suggestion, I would suggest that you start something. You're going to have, probably at the very least, you're going to have a study that Aguinar is going to have to do for the watch you guys want. So, maybe like a token amount, like $500 or something like that, or 500 Swiss francs or 500 euros, since you're going to be, well, no, still would be US dollars, because Rob's got the bank account for this. If you had a token amount that could still be useful for like getting the study done. You saw how long our study was supposed to be done in February. And here it is, August, in the middle of August, and there are still a few finishing touches that we haven't, that they're finishing up. And so it's in that context. That's all. I was just, like I said, is that sort of more than just for Aguinar, it's just given this whole sort of, I don't know, cat ball full of all of these moving parts and things. Anyway, guys, I think we thought I did anyway. I thought this one, number 2, is going to be easy, and it'll probably end up being, I hope it'll be the hardest one we ever have to finish up with. But like I said, maybe what the thing to do for Abdul to do is to communicate directly with Nicholas and explain everybody's hesitation and what they would like to sort of the ball rolling on. One of the things, though, and Abdul knows this, is so do I. I think a lot of us know it, that your list that you get of people who are interested suddenly shrinks as soon as money is involved. So that's one thing that you have to consider. It may actually have to build it up a little after an initial commitment. But you start getting past September, and then you get into the holidays and a lot of other stuff. And so just, Steve, yeah, and to address Steve things, I understand what you're saying is that, look, we've already got 3 balls in the air, and why throw in another one? It's the nature of the beast, and I think what you can do, if you do it, just sort of ease into it rather than crashing into it. I think that might help too. But like, it's up to you. Yeah, you guys decide on what you want in the watch too. That, I don't know if that's been done or not. Okay, anything else you guys that is on your mind that you want to talk about? Okay, well, listen, thanks guys for coming. We'll just sort of carry on. What is that thing? Chin up and carry on, or whatever the British saying is.